There's something powerful about quiet work. In a world obsessed with visibility, applause, and external validation, we often forget the value of doing meaningful work when no one is watching. We've grown so accustomed to showing the process, proving the effort, and announcing the ambition that the silence, the most important part of the journey, feels like a void, but it's not. Silence is not absence. Silence is space. And in that space, greatness is built. Let's take a step back. Why do we grind? Is it for recognition? Or is it because we believe in something that matters? The most impactful individuals in history didn't spend their early days broadcasting every small win. They focused on the mission, the craft, the obsession with getting it right. They practiced, they failed, they adjusted, and they did it all behind closed doors because it's in the silence that the real work gets done. The grind is not glamorous, it's repetitive, it's difficult, it's full of questions and self-doubt. And yet, those who embrace it, those who keep going when no one is clapping, those are the people who eventually emerge with something truly meaningful. They don't chase the spotlight. They become the reason others see the light. We live in a time where everyone wants to be seen, but very few want to be refined. We forget that the most valuable diamonds are formed under intense pressure and deep underground where no one can see. Grinding in silence is not about hiding. It's about preparing. It's about building a foundation so strong that when you finally speak, your work roars louder than your words ever could. Don't confuse visibility with value. Just because people don't see your effort doesn't mean it's worthless. Just because no one is cheering doesn't mean you're on the wrong path. In fact, if you're doing the right thing, the hard thing, the meaningful thing, it will often feel lonely. That's normal. That's normal. That's the grind. And that's where character is built. When we grind in silence, we do something even more important than chasing success. We build integrity. We stop performing and start becoming. We stop managing impressions and start mastering our discipline. The reward is not in the noise, it's in the growth. It's in the quiet transformation that prepares us to lead, to create, to contribute. If you're grinding in silence right now, don't rush the process. Don't wish for quicker results or louder applause. Focus on getting it right, not getting it seen. Let your work be the voice. Let your results be the announcement. When it's time, the world will notice. Not because you shouted, but because you built something that couldn't be ignored. 5 keynotes of the speech: true growth happens in silence, not in the spotlight. Grinding quietly builds discipline, character, and mastery. Visibility doesn't equal value. Purposeful work speaks louder than applause. The most impactful journeys begin with unseen effort and quiet resilience. Silence is not weakness. It's preparation for something greater. In a world dominated by likes, shares, and public praise, the idea that true growth happens in silence can feel counterintuitive. We've been conditioned to associate success with visibility, to believe that if people aren't seeing our progress, then maybe progress isn't happening at all. But that belief couldn't be further from the truth. Real growth, the kind that transforms us from who we are into who we're capable of becoming, doesn't happen in front of an audience. It happens in solitude, in struggle, in the quiet moments where no one is watching and no one is applauding. Think about nature for a moment. A seed does not sprout under a spotlight. It grows underground beneath the surface where it's dark, quiet, and hidden. That early stage of development is not glamorous, and it's certainly not visible, but it's vital. Without that silent phase, there is no tree, no fruit, no life. The same principle applies to human growth. The things that matter most, resilience, wisdom, strength, clarity, are cultivated in moments of reflection, practice, failure, and perseverance. And these moments don't usually come with recognition. They come in silence. Silence strips away the distractions. When no one is watching, we stop performing and start engaging honestly with our flaws and our fears. We get to face our weaknesses without shame. We get to practice without pressure. We get to fail without judgment. And that freedom is what allows growth to take root. It's where confidence is built, not the kind of confidence that comes from applause, but the kind that comes from knowing you've done the hard work, that you've earned your strength through sweat and solitude. When we focus too much on being seen, we risk performing rather than developing. We start tailoring our process to what looks good, not what works. We rush to share wins instead of understanding the lessons behind them. We start curating our image instead of building our character. And in doing so, we trade long-term substance for short-term validation. But growth is not a performance. It's a process. And the best parts of that process are usually invisible. Think about the athletes who train before dawn, the writers who draft countless pages that will never be published, the entrepreneurs who build systems before making a sale. Their progress isn't broadcasted. Their setbacks aren't headline material. But in those moments when it's just them and the grind, something profound is happening. They're getting better, they're learning, they're evolving. And by the time the world notices, the real transformation has already occurred. Silence allows for authenticity. Without an audience to impress, we become more honest with ourselves. We can admit when we're not good enough yet, and we can keep working until we are. We can move at our own pace, not the pace dictated by external expectations. And in that space, we start to measure progress by what really matters: effort, improvement, discipline, not by applause or comparison. This kind of growth is sustainable, it's deep, and it prepares us for challenges in ways surface level recognition never could. There's also a peace in silent growth. Without the noise of constant feedback, we learn to trust our instincts. We stop looking outward for validation and start looking inward for purpose. We become more grounded, more focused, and more aligned with our values. And when we eventually step into the light, we do so with clarity, not insecurity. We don't need to prove ourselves. We just need to be ourselves because we've done the work. So yes, true growth happens in silence. It happens when you're waking up early to practice while others sleep. It happens when you're rewriting that plan for the 5th time, knowing no one will see the effort but you. It happens in the quiet, uncomfortable moments when quitting seems easier, but you choose to stay in the fight. Those are the moments that shape you. Those are the moments that matter. And though they may be silent now, their impact will echo far into your future. Grinding quietly builds discipline, character, and mastery in ways that loud effort never can. When we work without the comfort of attention or applause, we're left only with the work itself, raw, demanding, and honest. In that space, something special happens. We develop an inner resolve that isn't dependent on anyone else's approval. We stop working to be seen, and we start working to be great. That shift is where real discipline is born, not from outside pressure, but from an internal decision to keep going no matter what. Discipline forged in silence is different. It's not driven by fear of failure or desire to impress. It's rooted in something deeper, a commitment to becoming the best version of yourself. When you wake up early to train, not because someone is watching, but because you promised yourself you would, that's real discipline. When you stay consistent, even on days when it's hard and no one will know if you quit, that's real discipline. And over time, that kind of effort compounds. It builds a foundation so solid that it can't be shaken by setbacks or doubt. Character is shaped the same way. Anyone can talk about values, but living them, especially when no one is watching, is what defines who we are. Grinding in silence forces us to confront ourselves. We don't get to hide behind praise or performance. We're left with our own standards, our own drive, our own integrity. And that's exactly where character is born. It's the decision to give your best when you have every excuse not to. It's the choice to act with honesty and intention, even when there's no reward. Over time, those small, quiet decisions shape you into someone people can trust, someone who leads by example, someone who doesn't just say what matters, someone who lives it. Mastery, too, is the result of silent grinding. It's not something that happens overnight, and it's never the product of shortcuts. Mastery comes from hours, sometimes years, of practicing the same skill, refining every detail, failing and adjusting again and again. And this process isn't glamorous. It doesn't happen on stage or in front of a camera. It happens in the quiet repetition that most people never see. The best musicians, athletes, artists, and innovators don't become great by showing off every step. They become great by showing up every day, doing the work, and obsessing over the craft when no one else cares. The beauty of silent grinding is that it removes the pressure to perform for others. Instead, it replaces that with the responsibility to perform for yourself. And that creates something far stronger than external motivation. It creates internal drive, the kind of fuel that doesn't burn out just because things get hard. When you learn to rely on that internal drive, you become unstoppable. You don't need praise to push forward. You don't need permission to improve. You work because it matters to you, because you're building something meaningful, because you're not chasing applause. You're chasing excellence. Silent effort also protects the process. When we work loudly, we invite opinions, judgment, and distractions that can distort our direction. But when we work quietly, we stay focused. We keep our heads down and our standards high. We're less reactive and more intentional. And that clarity leads to better results. We learn faster. We improve more consistently. We stay connected to the reason we started in the first place. Over time, this combination of discipline, character, and mastery becomes visible, but only after it's been built in silence. The results will eventually speak, not because you promoted them, but because they're undeniable. And when people finally see your work, they'll see the difference. They'll feel the strength behind it. They won't just notice what you've done. They'll recognize who you've become. Because grinding quietly doesn't just produce outcomes. It shapes the person who makes them possible. Visibility doesn't equal value. Purposeful work speaks louder than applause. This truth is often lost in a culture where attention is seen as currency. We're surrounded by constant updates, performances, and announcements where people showcase every step of their journey to prove their worth. It's easy to confuse being noticed with being valuable. But the reality is the work that has the greatest impact is rarely the loudest. The things that last, the things that truly matter, are often built far from the spotlight, and their value comes not from how many people saw them being made, but from the depth and purpose behind them. Purposeful work isn't about being seen, it's about doing something meaningful, something that aligns with who you are and what you believe in. It's about solving real problems, building real skills, making real contributions. And often, that kind of work takes time. It takes patience, focus, and a willingness to invest without immediate validation. When you commit to purpose over visibility, you allow yourself to grow without distraction. You can fail without fear of judgment, adjust without feeling like you've lost credibility, and most importantly, you can stay connected to the reason you started. Visibility is often fleeting. It can be manufactured, manipulated, even bought. But value cannot. Value is earned through consistency, effort, and depth. It's built through thousands of unseen moments, late nights, early mornings, doubts, breakthroughs, and the quiet decision to keep going. And when that kind of work finally surfaces, It carries weight. It doesn't need to be exaggerated or explained. People feel it. They recognize the difference between something polished for attention and something forged in dedication. There's a danger in chasing visibility too early. It can create a false sense of progress. When we're applauded for beginnings instead of completions, or for ambition instead of execution, we risk becoming performers rather than producers. We start optimizing for attention instead of improvement. We start asking, how will this look? Instead of, is this right? And in that shift, we lose the very thing that gives our work meaning. Its authenticity, its usefulness, its purpose. Purposeful work is often quiet because it doesn't need an audience to be worthwhile. It's driven by impact, not impression. It's guided by values, not trends. And it's measured by contribution, not attention. When we pour ourselves into something we believe in, whether or not others notice, we develop pride in the process, not just in the product. That pride becomes its own kind of reward. It sustains us when the outside world is silent. It reminds us that we're not doing this for applause. We're doing it because it matters. We have to remember that some of the most important work we do in life will never be seen. The emotional labor of becoming more resilient, the mental discipline of sharpening a skill, the long hours spent building something with care and precision. These things don't always come with recognition, but they build value, they build capability. They build the foundation upon which all future success will stand. And when the moment comes to share what we've built, we won't need to shout. The quality of the work will speak for itself. It's not wrong to be seen. Recognition can be encouraging, even necessary at times. But when visibility becomes the goal rather than a byproduct, we lose our way. We stop measuring our worth by what we're creating and start measuring it by how many eyes are watching. That's a fragile place to be. Because the crowd is fickle, applause fades, but value endures. If you build with purpose, your work will outlast the noise. It will continue to serve, to inspire, to move others, even when you're not in the room. So focus on the depth, not the display. Let your intention guide your effort. Let your standards be higher than your need for attention. Because when your work is rooted in purpose, it doesn't need to scream to be heard. Its value will echo long after the spotlight moves on. The most impactful journeys begin with unseen effort and quiet resilience. What many people notice as success is almost always the final chapter of a story that began long before anyone was paying attention. The foundation of every meaningful achievement is built in silence, in the uncelebrated hours, in the background of life where no applause is given and no recognition is offered. It's in these invisible moments that people make the decisions that shape who they become. The real journey doesn't start when the world sees you. It starts when you decide privately and powerfully that you will persist no matter what. There is a myth that successful people are just lucky, just talented, just born with the right conditions. What's rarely acknowledged is the amount of inner work that came before their moment in the light. The early mornings filled with doubt. The night spent questioning their direction. The failures that no one ever hears about. These are the things that define a person's path. And these things don't happen in the spotlight. They happen in quiet rooms, in personal battles, in the depths of struggle where most people would choose to walk away. Quiet resilience is the force that keeps a person moving when everything around them says stop. It doesn't look dramatic. It doesn't beg for attention, but it is immensely powerful. It's the moment someone chooses discipline over comfort, the moment they decide to try again after failure, the moment they sit with fear and move forward anyway. These small, often invisible acts of courage are what push the journey forward. Without them, there is no breakthrough. Without them, the journey stalls before it ever begins. What makes these moments so impactful is that they are chosen in solitude. When there is no one to impress, no pressure to perform, and no audience to validate your struggle, the decision to persist becomes pure. It's not about image or ego. It's about truth. It's about what you truly want and how deeply you're willing to fight for it. That's where real transformation begins. Because when you learn to rely on your own internal compass, you become resilient in a way that can't be shaken by outside circumstances. Every great achievement has a silent chapter. It's the part no one wants to talk about because it's not glamorous. It's filled with discomfort, frustration, and long stretches where progress feels invisible. But that chapter is essential. It's where skills are developed. It's where mindset is shaped. It's where strength is built one choice at a time. The people who go on to do extraordinary things are often the same people who endured quietly without applause when it would have been easier to stop. And what's even more powerful is that those unseen beginnings shape the way someone carries success later. When you've earned every inch of your progress through quiet persistence, you don't take success for granted. You don't chase approval because you've already proven your worth to yourself. You don't crumble under pressure because you've already faced pressure alone. That kind of strength doesn't show up all at once. It's built slowly through a series of invisible victories that no one but you will ever fully understand. The beauty of quiet beginnings is that they keep you grounded. When you've walked a difficult path without needing recognition, you learn to trust your process more than public opinion. You learn to value effort over appearance. You become focused on the mission, not the attention. And that focus is what allows you to create impact, not just for a moment, but over a lifetime. You're not interested in quick success or flashy wins. You're interested in building something that lasts, something real, something that came from within. So when your journey feels unnoticed, when the progress is slow and the silence is heavy, remember that this is the beginning of something meaningful. The unseen work you're doing now is not wasted. It's the very thing that will carry you when the spotlight finally finds you. And when that moment comes, it won't be a surprise, because you'll know how much it took to get there. You'll know the power of quiet resilience, and you'll realize that the most impactful part of your journey began when no one else was watching. ChatGPT said silence is not weakness. It's preparation for something greater. In a world that constantly encourages us to speak, to share, to show, silence is often misunderstood. It's seen as a lack of confidence, a void of action, or a signal of uncertainty. But silence, when chosen deliberately, is none of those things. It is strength in its most focused form. It is the space where growth occurs, where clarity is found, where preparation turns potential into power. Silence is not the absence of effort. It is the container that holds all of it. Many people rush to act, to announce, to prove. They believe that volume equals conviction. But the ones who truly move the world understand something deeper. They know that before you step into the spotlight, you must first be ready. You must first build something real within yourself. That doesn't happen through noise. That happens through silence. It happens in the early mornings where discipline is forged, in the hours of study where understanding is deepened, and in the solitude where self-belief is tested and strengthened. These silent moments don't get celebrated, but they are what makes celebration possible. Preparation is what allows performance to look effortless. When someone excels in their field, whether it's speaking, leading, creating, or performing, it's not because they suddenly found greatness. It's because they spent silent hours preparing for that moment. They built muscle memory, internal clarity, and emotional strength long before anyone was watching. The silence before the moment is what gives the moment its impact. It is the time when intentions are aligned, when doubts are wrestled with, and when a quiet commitment is made to excellence regardless of recognition. There is immense discipline in staying silent when everything around you demands noise. It takes courage to not rush into validation, to not chase approval, to not interrupt your preparation just to be seen. It's easier to post than to practice. It's easier to seek attention than to focus on alignment. But attention without preparation crumbles under pressure. Noise without substance fades quickly. The people who are truly ready when the moment comes are those who protected their silence, who respected the process, and who didn't mistake stillness for stagnation. Silence also creates space for listening to your instincts, your values, your true voice. When everything else is quiet, you begin to hear what matters. You start to understand your real motivations. You notice what fuels you and what drains you. That self-awareness is a powerful form of preparation because it ensures that when you act, you're acting with clarity, not confusion. You're no longer reactive to the world, you're rooted in yourself. That kind of presence can't be faked. It has to be cultivated in silence. It's in silence that strategy takes shape. You aren't just working harder, you're working smarter. You're thinking deeply about your next step, planning your approach, analyzing your progress. You're refining, adjusting, learning. These are the activities that separate those who make noise from those who make impact. The louder the world becomes, the more powerful intentional silence becomes. It's no longer a passive state. It's a deliberate act of preparation for those who understand that lasting greatness requires more than visibility. It requires depth. There's also humility in silence. You're not shouting about what you will do. You're quietly working to become the person who can do it. You're not promising success. You're preparing for it. That humility makes the eventual success even more meaningful because it's not built on ego. It's built on truth. When you rise after time in silence, people don't just see results. They see a person who has earned them, someone who is willing to wait, to prepare, to strengthen behind the scenes before stepping forward. Silence isn't something to escape. It's something to enter with intention. It is the blank page before the masterpiece, the pause before the leap, the inhale before the exhale that changes everything. It is not weakness, it's wisdom. It is not retreat, it's readiness. When you embrace silence, you're not stepping away from life. You're stepping into your power, sharpening your tools, grounding your purpose. You're preparing not just to act, but to act with meaning, with precision, and with impact that echoes far beyond the moment. The power of grinding in silence lies not in the absence of noise, but in the presence of purpose. It's in those unseen hours, quiet decisions, and uncelebrated efforts that true growth takes root. When we choose to work without applause, to show up without recognition, and to persist without needing validation, we build something far more valuable than attention. We build character, discipline, and lasting impact. Silence becomes the forge where integrity is shaped, mastery is developed, and resilience is born. And when the moment comes to step into the light, we do so not because we chased it, but because we became ready for it. Let others chase noise. You focus on becoming undeniable, grind in silence, and let your work speak for you.